Okay, good morning, everyone. Can people at home hear me?
We can hear you. We don't see you.
Okay, let me see if I can fix that. Your camera's not on. My camera's not on.
There you are.
There you go. Good to see you.
Hi, Dr. Lopez.
Pleasure to be here as usual. Okay, I'm going to start sharing my screen and then introduce what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to do my entire desktop. Then I'm going to minimize that, cross that, start with that. Okay, we'll start with that. I was walking down the street one day and I was feeling a little blue. And it wasn't because my oxygen was low. So I was thinking the last 3 or 4 years, we've been talking about diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and heart disease, and how to prevent these things. And what I taken from the COVID experience has been the fact that there are other dimensions to us other than our heart and our arteries and the cholesterol and the blood pressure and whatnot. And that perhaps these things may be connected to each other and that there may be a strong connection between them. And so, by the way, has anyone felt like this recently? Yeah, So, this is how I feel when I see that your heart is not doing well. So I worry, I think about it. How can I make that better? What pill do I give? What exercise or food to help you with and whatnot. So I ponder with that emotion around, so how to make the heart better. And so I was thinking, what's the impact of our emotions in our cardiovascular health? And is there any connection between emotions and our bodies? Something we feel, and there is one connection everybody always makes is I love you. And what do? A heart shape, right? There it is. So everybody knows that love is in the heart, right? But what about all the other emotions? What about when you're sad or when you're angry, when you're happy, when you're giggling and laughing? Where in the body is that? Where is that coming from? And what relationship does it have to the rest of you and your health and the cardiovascular function? So I was thinking about this. And when I think about these things, because I'm a little curious, I go to the literature, the medical literature, and I start looking and see what evidence is out there. And I stumble into this paper that I'm going to share with you today. So I'm going to start by sharing a paper about emotions. So red alert, this is your cardiologist talking about emotions. So that means he probably doesn't know what he's talking about. And I'm going to declare that up front. There are no expertise behind this presentation, just so you know. It's just, I think it's an interesting topic to chat about. And so that's why I'm bringing it up. The second part of the talk will be, I have a video, about a 15-minute video that I want to share with you. And I'll give you some instructions about the video when we get there. And then if we have time, I could, if we still have time, we could still talk about some research that I'm doing, but I have no expectations that we'll talk about that. So hopefully the first 2 parts will take care of the hour. So with that at hand, so this is the study that I'm talking about. This is published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, a very respectful journal. And the title is Maps of Subjective Feelings. Now, I'm not sure why they had to put the word subjective in front of feelings, because I think all feelings are subjective, right? But I think what they're trying to do is distinguish what you feel in your body, so by body perception versus an emotional perception. So I think they were trying to make that distinction. So subjective feelings will be emotions that you have. And they were trying to map them. And so why in the hell would they do this? Well, Subjective feelings are central to everyday human life, from forgetfulness to feeling ill or having a good day with a friend. All of these are subjective feelings. We currently do not have a clear understanding of the organization of inner feelings and where they can be mapped in the body or brain. So that leaves the door open that they're not all in the brain, okay? They may be in other parts of the body. So they interview 1,000 participants, and they ask them to rate subjective feelings, 100 of them. So they give them a list of 100 subjective feelings. And then they ask them to think about different physiological body things like hunger, cognitive, and others. It's a really intricate, complicated survey study. And then they use words to connect. So people have to feel something and use a word to connect that. And then the connection of that word has been mapped out. So when people are thinking or saying these words, they have other studies that mapped out in the brain, where in your brain that word triggers something in your brain. And after they've done all these surveys, they went to the data on the brain and they kind of crisscrossed the two of them and tried to come up with some orientation of where these feelings may be triggered, what they may be triggering in the brain. It's very sophisticated stuff. And I will not be able to explain any of the statistics, so I will not show any statistics. But I'll try to describe at a high level what I saw in the results of this. But they performed this representational similarity analysis to determine how similar these feelings, body and brain maps were to one another. So this is a little bit of you got a bunch of things, and now you got to kind of group them around, see which ones are more alike to each other. So they kind of group in the different feelings and different body perceptions, and they try to group them to see if which ones of those are mapping to the same areas in the body. And so in that process, and again, I'm not going to go into the statistics. This is the result. Crystal clear. That's your emotions on a graph for a scientist, okay? It's a very complicated diagram. I'm going to give you a tour of it. On the y-axis, which is the upright arrow on the left side of the screen, they put things that are related to your high mental effort, where the things at the bottom are things that are considered low mental effort. And this came out from the surveys themselves. People were asked about how much mental effort you have to do or what's related to these feelings and these experiences. Then on the bottom line, the bottom arrow, they're measuring on the left here unpleasant. So they ask people, are these unpleasant or not, versus pleasant. And they grade it. Usually they give you a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, and you grade it, and they analyze that together. And after they put the scores for all these different 100 items together, then they see how they associate with each other. And the association is demarcated by these lines. So if the lines are close, it would mean they're highly associated. So whining
We've lost the audio.
winning is associated with loneliness over here, but it's kind of a weaker association because it's far away. So how close things are means they're highly associated with each other. And if they're very far away, they're less associated. And if they don't relate, like losing does not relate to winning. They're opposite, right? So there's no relationship. You never find losing next to winning in associations, because you can't be losing and winning at the same time, can you? You had to find the one aberrancy in the world. Darn. Yeah. Definitely out of my talk today. So when they looked at this, they gave him some categories. So up here, things that require high mental effort, but are unpleasant, are your negative emotions. Now, interesting, things that require high mental effort, but are pleasant, are your positive emotions. They're over here in the red. Down here is these unpleasant things that don't require a lot of mental effort because you're sick. So this is dizziness, the heartburn, the flu, coughing, sneezing, toothache, aching, itching, all of these related to each other. And then over here, they had this area which is low mental effort, but pleasant. Things like surprise, recognition, attending, memorizing, inferring recollection, remembering things, reasoning, thinking. So these things were considered pleasant. And interestingly, thinking requires low mental effort. At least for me, that's actually true. When I'm actually thinking about these things, I am just relaxed and it's really like pleasant. And then they come up with this thing in here in the middle, which they call homeostasis. And I still have trouble understanding what that is, but it's, you know, it's defecation, salivation, eating, tasting, thirst, hunger, things that we have to do just because we exist. And, you know, so that's why they're called homeostasis. They kind of keep us being the human beings that we are. Doesn't necessarily take a lot of thinking, doesn't necessarily take a lot of pleasure. You eat, you go to the bathroom, you drink, you know, things like that. So you're probably wondering, what the heck do we do with this? And I don't know, this is just knowledge. I'd be interested and curious what the first thing that comes to your mind when you see something like this and start thinking about how to relate the work and the intensity your brain has to use with whether things are pleasant or unpleasant. Does anybody have any comment about this?
So when you're sick, your brain is the worst off? Is that what that sort of implies?
It's not that it's the worst off, it's that when people were asked whether in the pleasant, unpleasant versus how much mental energy, effort it took, sick is a state where you're not using a lot of mental effort. You're just unpleasant, is what really this represents. So, and then negative emotions are unpleasant, but they are requiring a lot of mental effort. You invest effort into those. Where these things that are positive, you still invest effort, but they're pleasant efforts.
To me, that just the whole thing, looking at it, reminds me of how quick you can go from one end of the spectrum to the other. You can be feeling good, even if you have an ache and pain, even if your shoulder hurts or your leg hurts or something, you're doing okay. And then someone calls with bad news or irritating news, and you completely go to negative side.
Nervousness or anxiety. You move from here to here. You're from this state to this state now. Or you can be sharing, and that's true. So these are closer to each other. So this is the concept. Now don't think on the individual words, think of the group. These two groups are closer to each other than this group is closer to this one. So these two groups actually are farther away from each other.
Zoom can't see that, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Can't see your hands.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. So let me paraphrase that. So the negative emotions in the blue and the positive emotions on the red are very far away from each other, where the negative emotions in the blue and the illnesses in the purple on the bottom are much closer to each other. So to capture that, we'll capture it in this way. This is a little easier to see that. It's the same, it's the data that I just showed you. I show you the raw data where the lines have meanings and all that, but this is just conceptual now, at kind of a high level. There's a group, this high mental intensity that has the negative feelings. And then there's a group of the illness, which is the purple, and they overlap. There's some overlap, which is exactly what you said, that you can easily hover from one to the other. But the negative feelings in the blue are very far away from the positive feelings on the red. and the cognitive processes are related to the positive feelings. They kind of just with a little bit, it could be pleasant, but with a little bit more effort, we move into the feeling kind of that concepts.
Dr. Lopez, can you infer that it takes similar amount of energy, feel the negative feeling?
Yes, that's exactly right. So think of this as a ruler. And so this is quantity, similar intensity. When you go across, it will be similar.
So you consciously could choose positive. And you for that too.
You can finish the rest of my talk. That's it. You got it. Punchline. Yeah, well, that is the punchline. Can you do that? And if you actually could manipulate things for yourself in that way, when you focus your energy to move yourself from here to here, which will become more pleasant. And lots of us are feeling the unpleasantry of life at this moment.
Dr. Lopez, I don't know if you've experienced that, but I've known people who tend to be on one side or the other, not side, but they tend to stay in those
Mhm.
nebulous, very
Yeah.
positives. You never see that individual go into that other area. They're always in the middle to positive, and I've seen others that are constantly over on this side and don't even make it to homeostasis.
Yeah.
They just stay over
They're just
here. like
over here in the blue, in the purple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the negative.
Or the negative,
Or-
negative and purple constantly.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
was,
Yeah.
that brings to the end of your lecture.
I noticed that the people doing the article were all from Finland.
Yes, and so these
Is
are all
there a
Finnish people.
Finnish bias here?
That's, yes, absolutely a bias. This is a Finnish society with their feelings as they are, which I don't understand them. So that's a great point. This is a monocultural, if you will, survey. So like in many things in science, this needs to be tested again in other groups of people.
'Cause I would expect in an impoverished area or in a place where economics is not a factor.
Right.
You still have to have positive and negative, but a lot of the externals are radically different. And so drawing one with the other, including culture, would make a difference.
Yeah, culture and social stress.
Yes,
What's what
yes.
you're addressing. Yeah, and that's very important. That's a different psychological concept, and maybe this is what you're referring. There's a conceptual element of pyramid that you have needs, and your needs are not met at the most basic level, meaning you have shelter, food, and you feel safe. Then you can get a higher level of thinking or feeling. This is probably at a higher level in that pyramid, because it's a social culture where most of the basic needs of people are taken care of in some of these Scandinavian and European countries. And I think Finland will qualify as one of them. So that would be very different from Sacramento or Mississippi or wherever in this country you would look. So there clearly there'll be variation. So this is a concept for us to think about and talk about. It's not a proof and or a definite answer of this. So they went on to map out body perceptions and brain perception and try to localize these things. I'm actually not going to talk too much about that. I'm going to divert now a little bit based on this. It gets to the question you were asking: can you trigger? Can you shift? Can you move around on this in this concept from positive feelings to negative feelings? And so I've been working with a group from Berkeley in the last year, and so they tell me that is true. That first you have some control over this. Sure, we all have personalities, we all have external situations, but that there's still some internal power that you have in controlling and shifting things. The question is, how do you learn about it? How do you tap into it? And so that's kind of the conversations I've been having with them, the kinds of studies that I've been talking to them. And so there's a very specific principle that you have to first recognize to understand this kind of work. And is that you, in the graph showed it very nicely. They're far away. Positive and negative emotions are very far away from each other in that graph. That's data. That's from a research of 1,000 people. But ask this question of yourself. Can you be calm and nervous at the same time? It's got to be one or the other, right? For the most part. If you think of an example where you can be calm and nervous at the same time, please shout it, because this will be interesting to hear and listen. But for the most part, I'm told you just can't have these two emotions together. It's just usually not natural for we as humans to have them together. Happy versus sad. Can you be sad and happy at the same time? You have to make space. You have to make time for be sad, just like you have to make time to be happy.
You can be happy about some things and sad about others.
That's right. But that will be in your mind at the moment will be, you wouldn't have concomitantly sadness and happiness about the single thing you're thinking about at the moment.
I can be sad about, unfortunately, my cousin passed away a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sad about that. I miss her companionship. I miss being able to talk to her, that sort of thing. But I'm happy that I'm going to become a grandma in July, God willing. So I think you can be happy and sad. It just depends on the circumstances. Now, really sad, depressed, that's something else.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're not talking about pathological illness kind of type of emotions. We're talking about general everyday emotions we have. And I think you make a good point that you can be happy and sad, but you were happy about being a grandmother and you were sad about the loss of your family member, which, by the way, we offer our regrets.
Sad about
The very same thing at the same time. At the same moment, I am very happy and sad about this cup right now, right here, because it's empty. I'm actually sad that it's empty. I cannot be happy that it's empty. So it just, we humans have a hard time putting these two things together.
For example, her cousin, who I'm sad that she passed away, but we also like a little bit happy, well, at least they're no longer in pain, suffering, or whatever. Could that kind of close?
You found a good example. I like it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sad for the lost, but I'm happy because they're not suffering. So now I'm not sad and happy about the loss. So that's kind of maybe a fine distinction there, but okay, so let's keep going. What about sober and drunk? Can you be sober and drunk at the same time? And no one's going to find me. I mean, you can claim you're sober, but you're still drunk. In fact, the stronger you claim you're sober, the more drunk you probably are. So can you be cool and angry? Can you be cool and chill and also be angry at the same time?
Unless you bury the anger deep.
Yeah. So you have to put a lot of energy in doing
Yes,
that.
requires
It's not a natural thing for us.
A lot of energy.
Yeah. You got a lot of mental intensity, effort to do that, right? Yeah. Okay. We have excited and bored. Can you be totally bored about this presentation, or can you be excited about it at the same time? I don't know. By the way, there'll be evaluations, some evaluations that Linda's printing. Yeah, I mean, if you're bored, sure, put it on the evaluation. But if you're excited, make sure you put it on the evaluation too. What about overjoyed and disheartened? Can you be overjoyed and disheartened at the same time? Are you guys catching on a pattern here? Yeah. Encouraged and discouraged. Can you be encouraged by something and discouraged by it at the same time? And the last one is being serious versus unserious. And this is an interesting one because there are ways to use humor in serious occasions. So it takes an art to do that well. But so these are not, yes or no binary crystal clear things, but in general, there's a concept here. It's hard to entertain and be in positive emotions and in negative emotions at the same time, and we shift. We can shift. All of us have shifted from one of the, well, not everyone has been sober and drunk, but everybody's been calm and nervous at some point. So we all know, experience in ourselves, that ability to shift back and forth. So it's in us to be on one or the other, and they hardly can be together. So, the question is, can we do anything about that? Can we actually choose? Can we do any strategies? Can we figure out ways to go from discouraged to encouraged? To go from serious to unserious? And that's an interesting question. I think I have one more, please and annoying. It's the last one, I think. Yeah. So this group that I'm working with in Berkeley is doing a lot of research about the impact of emotions. And so they put together a conceptual model of the impact that positive emotions may actually have into our health. So now we're going to focus a little bit onto health. Okay. So I'm going to show you a diagram from a recent review that they published, Maria Monroy and Dacker Keltner. And so I'm working very directly with Maria, and Dacker is a mentor supervisor. He is the senior investigator at Berkeley that we're working with. And the model that they build is this idea that positive experiences or positive emotions affect your body first before they affect your mental health and your physical health. So there are physiological changes in your body that actually change with these emotions. In the top box in the middle, the top box says vagal tone, sympathetic arousal, inflammation, oxytocin, and DMN, which is a region in the brain that gets activated. It's a group of different places in your brain and different neurons that activate. The entire group of that in your brain has that name DMN. So they say positive emotions can activate these things. Vagal tone is what slows down your heart rate when you relax. Sympathetic, it's the adrenaline in you. And what the arrows show what the emotion does. So it increases the vagal tone, which is what slows down your heart rate. It decreases your sympathetic arousal, which is the fight or flight hormone. And so it decreases that. It decreases inflammation. And we've talked about inflammation, and many other speakers probably have spoken about the impact of inflammation to our bodies, which is usually not good. Sometimes it's okay, it's good, but most of the time it's not. Oxytocin, which is an interesting chemical that it's supposed to be a mediator in the brain, and then this area in the brain too that is that activation of that is leads us to unhealthy, and so decreased activation of that area in the brain, it's supposed to improve our health. They also say these emotions increase or diminish the sense of self. You can think about that for a moment. It increases the pro-social relationability. Let the Puerto Rican be the one reading. So this is social relationships, essentially. It increases social relationships. It increases social integration. Groups of people coming together and tolerating each other. That's what social integration would be. And it can increase the sense of meaning of serving larger purpose. And then they show how these effects in you, some of them are psychological, some of them are physical, you just say that, how they could then interact, how each one of them would interact with the mental health and the physical health. I'll start with the physical because I am a physician. Stress, headaches, sleep, body aches, stomach aches, autoimmune disorders, cardiovascular health, and longevity. I can tell you lots of these things affect your blood pressure directly. And we see this in practice every day. In the mental health side of things, having these positive emotions through these mechanisms will lead to a increased sense of well-being, decreased stress, decreased anxiety, decreased depression, decreased PTSD. If I tell you I have a pill you take every day that'll do that for you, I think you'll take it in general. Okay, so this is a non-medical approach to perhaps stimulating and triggering these things. Kind of the control portion of this, switching from being drunken to be sober. Can I choose that? Can I affect it? And so,
Can you speak to how does this fit into your first picture of the more brain activity when you're doing all this?
what they did with the brain activity, the different correlations that they came up with, then they look at the areas in the brain that were associated with those correlations. But I'm not going to cover that today. It got really too brainy. No pun intended, to go over. But I think the point I want to try to start, first, there's energy you put into it to get these positive emotions, but what's the reward of doing it? What are you going to get out of it other than pleasant maybe moments with the positive emotions? But here's the payoff. This is the reason why to think about this is because it looks like there are mechanisms in the biological mechanisms and psychological mechanisms that lead to outcomes that we are interested in. And I give you pills to do these things. We give you surgeries and pills and things like that to do this. This is an alternative way. It's tapping into the power that perhaps we have to trigger these kind of events. How am I doing on time? Oh, I better hurry up because the video is exactly 14 minutes. So for this video, it starts with a musical piece. The speaker asks you to stand up and follow along. I would actually encourage you to do that. I'm going to try to do it myself. So, and it'll only last for like 15 seconds. So don't panic. Okay. But he's going to actually directly ask you to do something with the music. So I'd encourage you to do that. I think it improves the experience of the video. Full disclaimer, the video is meant to trigger emotions. So allow yourself, try to be, whatever it takes for you to kind of quiet down the fact that you got to go to the bank or, somebody's texting you or something, and try to be in the moment with these 14 minutes on the video so we can appreciate that. Is there any way to turn off the light?
We can
Can I turn off the light?
Can you make sure the share sound is on?
Yes, I will make sure now that I don't think I did that. So I'm going to undo my sharing. Stop sharing. It's sharing again. I was gonna say that not the video I'm playing. The advertisements are not part of this, but they're apparently showing up for free. Let's see if I do this. Okay. All right. Wrong video. Wrong video. All right, go. We're gonna have to start from here again. Let's see.
Not going.
It's trying. There we go. Now we're in the right video. But there'll be an advertisement. I tried to skip the advertisement, but it sent me in the wrong video.
Challenge the past.
So, okay, that's good because
Challenge
this is the
accepted.
advertisement.
Purdue University Global. Affordable online education.
Not trying to advertise you.
He's actually using this.
Okay, can the people at home see a white screen with the letters TED on it?
It just says play the video
Got it.
of the white screen.
Do you see the letters now at home too?
TED,
Yep,
yes.
excellent.
If you can't hear it, you need to speak up too, Elaine.
Yeah, speak up right away so we can fix it.
That fan artist is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
First reactions.
Fascinating.
Seems like a place for the religion often filled.
I felt panic every time they weren't touching, like he, I don't know what you call it, when he had to grab her in
Jump,
the
yeah.
air. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So would all be like taking a lot of mental intensity since it's a positive thing?
Can you repeat what's said in Folsom Hall so the rest of us can hear it, please?
The question is whether awe will take a lot of mental intensity to express the feeling. It's a great question, actually. If I had to guess, because again, I'm not well learned on this subject yet. If I had to guess, awe probably has its own effect. That awe was not included on, by the way, awe was not in the 100 emotions and perception, subjective feelings that they asked people, which to me was very interesting.
It's Finland.
Yeah, it's Finland, yeah. They're a little more concrete
That's right.
than that. Yeah, so I don't know the answer to your question. But it's a fascinating question. So I like this video for two reasons. I actually felt something with the video. I don't know, did you guys feel something? Is there, and did anybody feel their breathing pattern changing at any moment during the video? I took two extra breaths when she jumped and he grabs her and doesn't quite let her fall. So did anybody, yeah, go ahead.
I was fascinated by the artist until the gymnastics started. And then I couldn't move my eyes from the gymnastics just to glance back at the art. That was ongoing for a while. They were simultaneous on two sides of the screen. And part of that's my interest in gymnastics. And part of it is that they're so good. And I've never been privileged to see Cirque du Soleil in person, although that's one of my, eventual goals to see it. But they were excellent. But I was just riveted by the ability that they showed and the trust that they showed in each other.
Got it. So were you able to be angry at that moment? Were you able to have, while you were watching it and enjoying that, were you able to think of anxiety at that moment? Were those feelings in you at the same time? I don't mean to put you on the spot, so, but you don't have to answer, but anyone else that had something that they enjoy or appreciated? Got it. Well, the good thing is I can share the link and you can watch it over and over. So yeah, but that's great. I've watched it 3 times and you're right. Every time I would look at something different when I'm watching it. So
Solve that board.
the what?
Come to a resolution back forward.
Yeah. That's right.
You
That's
could do
right.
the same thing relating to the chord. If you've seen Luther and Roger Rabbit,
Uh-huh.
this is the bar scene where they knock on the thing and they do the, and he knows that Roger's got to do the,
Yeah.
and he does that shave of the head, but and so it's less standing and waving and
Yeah.
more plebeian perhaps. but
Got
it's-
So the other reason why I showed this is he builds the argument not specifically towards health, but he builds the argument towards conflict resolution, that you have some power on choosing awe and choosing the way you engage in conflict. And the point I want to leave you with is awe is an example of a positive emotion. It's not the only one you saw. There are lots of others on that graph. Could be triggered, could be provoked, could be brought into the moment in your mind, in your experience, such that it helps you accomplish some goal to which you would like. In his case, he proposed for conflict resolution. We have a trial right now that we're using this triggering positive emotions for patients with long haul COVID. And we're going to try to looking to see if we can help them. They have a lot of emotions in addition to their physical components. And so we're trying to use the triggering of positive emotions to help manage their experience through long COVID. So that's the study I'm actually working with the group in Berkeley. But it's all about the ability to teach people the ability to, first of all, to declare that we have that ability, and then teach ways that you could actually trigger positive emotions. I mean, there's not any one way, truly, there are many different ways, and it's actually very personal in so many ways. But the idea that you can actually trigger these emotions, bring them to the moment, it's a little bit of the concept of mindfulness, rather than, one purpose of mindfulness to exclude negative things, but you can use mindfulness to bring positive things into your space. And then to leave you with the message that this does affect your physiology, does affect the blood pressure. It does make your blood pressure go down, it does make your heart rate go down. We can control the same things I can do with a beta blocker can be done with positive emotions and mindfulness. So leave you with the idea that there are other alternatives to medication. Yes.
So said it was hard to watch the art when gymnastics started. It was also hard to hear. I think I missed most of what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, and I should know better than that. Yeah. Oh, okay.
It was the more engaging part
Your focus was changed.
was
Change.
the gymnastics,
Got it. Yeah.
and then secondary art, and then maybe.
So would anybody acknowledge that they had a little bit of awe during the gymnastics? Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I think that was the goal, the art. He figured he can put two things on the screen, and some people would be engaged with the art, some people engaged with the gymnastics. And among those, some people would actually feel awe from the art, and some people feel the awe from the gymnastics. And I think that's what he was trying to do, is see if some people in the room will actually could trigger awe and just have that experience in the moment during his presentation. Because he was trying to say, you can utilize this, you can provoke this, you can, there are reasons why you should do that. And he was trying to prove that you can provoke it. So that was the purpose of doing the Cirque du Soleil and the
Plus, the part, the right hand side, the very top.
Mhm.
was craving.
I believe you. I don't, yeah. Let's see.
Uh,
Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Craving is aspirational,
Yeah,
kind of what you're hoping for.
yeah,
Or, however you want to describe it,
yeah.
but,
Closeness, social, feeling touch, orgasm, sexual arousal,
Yeah.
craving, wanting. They're all close to each other. But it's really interesting. So based on the data, feeling touch doesn't connect with any of these.
right.
They're close, but there's not a direct connection. So that's really interesting, where these are not only connected, these four are connected to all four of them as a single concept. So
It looks like homeostasis is the hub of things, that you can almost start from the hub. and work.
yeah, you have, yeah, right. So to be able to get to these higher levels of thinking and feeling, you have to be in a homeostatic state.
Yeah.
If you are running from the predator, or you are afraid for your life, or you are overwhelmed with poverty, or you are, hurting from pain, injury, it's really hard to then try to trigger emotions and think about these things. So
And likewise, I think when this idea of provoking a positive emotion to overcome the symptoms of long haul or whatever it might be, it would be pretty hard to do it without that trigger. For instance, we were watching something and that was eliciting the awe. But to be truly helpful in health situations or blood pressure situations where people are prone to anxiety and things, stress, there must, I think the final aim would be to be able to trigger that without having an artificial a film going or something like that. I mean, will that be the ultimate step, is that you initially you learn what the feeling is like by watching things or whatever, and then somehow through biofeedback you learn how to call it out on your own. Is that right or no?
You are 100% right. In fact, I'm going to hire you as the principal investigator of my next study.
Okay.
Because that's exactly the purpose. What you just described is exactly the purpose. Some people experience awe in what we call in the ordinary, everyday life, walking around, you just,
Yeah.
but most of us need to be taught how to focus on that, how to actually not let the noise on the road and the this and the that take away from that opportunity. So yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things we do as children. We do that all the time, and as we get adults, we lose it. And so it's not that we cannot do it. It's just we just get distracted with everything else, and we don't traditionally keep doing it. So the trial that we're doing is actually to teach people how to provoke awe in the ordinary. So not needing to go to the mountains, not needing to be at Cirque du Soleil. To do it, but rather be in your environment where you are on a daily basis. And the other concept is that the hypothesis is that it changes your brain, and that experiencing these positive emotions over time changes your brain in such a way that your brain becomes less stressed and less about the negative emotions. So concept, the more positive emotions you're able to bring in, the less negative emotions there actually are, because in time you cannot share both emotions. So if you're spending more time triggering positive emotions, then you have, by definition, you have less of the negatives, and the negatives are the ones that are driving, in his case, conflict, in my case, disease and hypertension and tachycardia and these other
Is them
things.
as part of this project?
He's not.
It also. Conscious,
Hmm.
pushing exposed. So that the positive, if you push more towards the positive, you might have more positive outcomes,
That's right.
mental health, overall.
Yeah, exactly. So the question is, can you push these emotions, increase or trigger the emotions such that they push you towards the mental health and the physical health? And that's exactly right. And there's data towards that. There are all kinds of different studies on this. They're all small studies. Let me just be serious about this. But they're consistent. I've seen studies on drug addiction, autism, chronic pain. We're doing one in COVID now. And so in most places where it gets tested, there's usually a subjective positive result from it. This is an early studies trying to look at the brain. So the two pieces, he talked about one study that they did looking at the brain waves, and then the study I'd show you. These are early studies trying to get to the actual biology of it. But when we do subjective surveys, people are usually the needle of their perception of stress or pain or lack of control in life or things like that, which are part of the negative emotions. Their sense of that gets diminished, and their sense of positive experiences and positive emotions increase.
Can you mention something about, you mentioned twice now, a COVID study? I'm not quite sure how that fits into what we've been talking about.
It just happens to be the one study I'm doing right now related to the topic I'm talking right now.
So COVID and awe?
Yep,
No.
we're doing that. We're doing a study for that. Yep.
Elaine, to help people who have the long haul symptoms, which I imagine could be really depressing.
Yeah, and distressing and painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have all kinds of different perception, body perception. And then on top of that, they have all the emotions that go with it. The frustration, the anger. So they're really hovering on that negative emotion space all the time. And so we're trying to give teach a new technique to try to at least momentarily move to a positive emotion area. And then first is, can we do it? Can people do it? Can people can we teach them to actually do that? And then if the result is positive to that, meaning can we teach them, then we can then study, what's the actual effect, psychologically and physical. First, we have to show we can teach it. So.
Thank you.
The ultimate test, I think, if you work with the prison population, people who have that anger management issue and then end up, it seems like all of them that, these killings, these shootings, but how they could trigger it at that moment when they're losing control. But maybe what you're saying is those people tend to be hovering along a lower level of it all the time. And maybe that's the conversion point or something. Yeah.
Yeah, in our discussions, we haven't talked about using awe to avert a stressful moment or a conflict about to happen. What we've talked about is when you're not in those moments, you are trying to provoke awe, such that when you are put in that situation next, you react or behave differently, and maybe perhaps not to get to the anger or not get the upsetting kind of conflict that we'd like to stay away from. So it's kind of and the hypothesis is that it changes not only how we react, but also the biology of who we are. All right. Thank you again. Really appreciate your feedback and attention. Forms, yeah. So if you don't mind, fill them out and some quick questions, some feedback, and then leave them with Linda, and I'll get them the next time. So
Maybe Linda can send it out so that those of us that are
on
online.
an email. Yeah, she'll send it on an email, and you got electronically will be fine as well. So thank you, everyone. I got to head back to clinic there.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez.
Yeah, thank you. Is it
1:30.
possible to know the name of the TED Talk?
Yes, I'll send the email. I'll send the link
Great.
to Linda, and she can share it.
Great. Thanks.
Um,